Discover the miraculous separation of Abraham from Terah, God's transforming plan revealed. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the air in Ur of the Chaldeans was thick with incense and the fervent voices of worshippers chanting to the myriad of gods that adorned every corner of the bustling city. Among the gleaming temples dedicated to the great moon god Sin, stood Abram, the son of Terah, a priest steeped in the traditions of his ancestors. With ornate buildings surrounding him and the shadows of idols casting long upon the soil, Abram felt an unsettling burden. As he walked the crowded streets, his heart wrestled against the worship of false gods that saturated his city. Terah, his father, held tight to these traditions, unwavering in his devotion. Yet, within Abram stirred whispers of a higher calling that haunted him, a call to step beyond the boundaries of his familiar life. One evening, as the sun dipped into the horizon, casting a warm glow over the land, Abram found himself kneeling in his chamber, grappling with the weight of the moment. The air shifted, and a powerful presence enveloped him. Suddenly, a voice broke through the silence, filled with divine authority. Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. The command resonated within him, echoing the promise of a covenant yet to unfold. Abram's heart pounded with conflict. The cost loomed large, leaving Terah, family, and the comfort of familiarity. It was a moment of deep tension, where the threads of faith and tradition intertwined perilously. Mustering courage, Abram approached Terah, revealing the divine message he had received. The old man's response was immediate, a contortion of disbelief and fury. You dare to abandon the gods of our fathers? Terah's words slashed through Abram's resolve, eliciting a powerful clash of wills, faith versus familial loyalty. With a heavy heart, Abram prepared to depart, feeling the weight of his father's expectations upon him. Terah lingered, unable to sever the bond that tethered them, insisting on joining his son on this journey, a journey that should have been marked by faith but bore the shadows of uncertainty. As they traversed the dusty roads toward Canaan, the landscape shifted beneath their feet, yet the promise flickered dimly in Abram's mind. Familiar images of worshipping idols haunted him, false flickers of light and hollow prayers. Yet, the call to a nation awaited him, whispering sweetly through the chaos in his soul. Abruptly, Terah halted at a small settlement named Haran, an oasis where they momentarily paused. Terah, seeking comfort in the visible, chose to worship there, anchoring them in familiar traditions that tugged at Abram's spirit. In Haran's lushness, the tension grew heavier, the pull of home was strong. Abram wrestled with the divine call, wondering if God would grant him clarity once more. Would he dare to move forward, risking everything for a promise that felt elusive? Kneeling beneath the vast expanse of stars glittering like jewels above, Abram sought assurance, a glimpse of the glorious future that God had envisioned, a future where nations would spring forth from his lineage. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As night deepened over Haran, the stars gleamed brightly, a reminder of the promise that loomed vast above him. Would he embrace the risk of an unknown journey, breaking from the chains of legacy? With a faceless tension crackling in the air, Abram held on to hope, the very hope that his future rested within the unseen hand of God. A path shrouded in mystery awaited him, teetering between the comforts of the past and a divine destiny yet fulfilled. The voice of God waited patiently, whispering into the night, hinting at the greatness to come, as Abram, knelt in prayer, awaited the next step in faith. In the dawn of the 4th day within Haran, the sun illuminated the landscape, casting rays that pierced through the morning mist. Abram awoke early, for the darkness had not left his heart. He arose from his sleep, still haunted by the weighty promise, a call to leave behind all that was known and venture into the unknown. As he stepped outside, the fragrance of dew-kissed grass filled the air, yet it did little to soothe his troubled spirit. The compelling voice that had once resonated within him now seemed distant, cloaked in uncertainty. Would he truly forsake all that he had ever known? He observed Terah tending to the household with fervor, immersed in the rituals of his forefathers. The sight struck deeply within Abram. He wrestled silently with the conflict of loyalty to his father and devotion to the one who summoned him. In that moment of turmoil, he recalled the words spoken in the stillness, "I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing." Genesis 12 verse 2. Those words tethered him to hope amidst the confusion. Could he trust in a promise yet unseen? Would he dare to believe in the God who called him? That day, as they prepared to resume their journey, Abram approached Terah with a new resolve, despite the tremors of fear quaking within him. "Father," he spoke, his voice steady yet gentle, "let us leave Haran and set our feet toward Canaan, as the Lord has commanded." Terah, sensing the determination in his son's words, turned to face him, disbelief etching his brow. "You wish to abandon me for a whim of a god? Have you forgotten the ways of the old? Do not let your ambition cloud your heart." The piercing words of Terah weighed heavily like stones upon Abram's spirit. "Father, it is not ambition that drives me, but a divine calling," Abram replied, the fire of conviction igniting his tone. "The God who spoke to me has promised lands and blessings beyond measure. I cannot ignore this destiny." Silence enveloped them as the weight of these sacred words hung in the air. Terah, torn between love for his son and the fear of the unknown, cast his gaze toward the horizon. At last, with a resolute sigh, he uttered, "Then we shall go, but I shall not abandon the gods of my ancestors." With reluctant acceptance, Terah gathered their household, yet Abram sensed an inner fracture. The tethering ties of their journey were wrapped in misunderstanding, bound by the chains of two varied faiths. They set off, traversing the road leading south, the sun lighting their path but shadows lingering in their hearts. Days melded into weeks as they traveled, with Abram faithfully guiding them. He looked to the heavens, always seeking affirmation, and the stars above twinkled approvingly, as if responding to his unspoken questions. Yet Terah's devotion to the idols of their past weighed heavily, and conflict simmered beneath the surface. In the stillness of one night, as they camped beneath a canopy of stars, Abram sought the Lord once again. Kneeling in fervent prayer, he uttered, "O Lord, how shall I lead if my father does not see the truth of your promise?" The heavens bore witness to his plea, enveloping him in an ethereal silence. Then suddenly, the voice returned, filled with clarity, "Fear not, Abram, for I am your shield, your reward shall be very great." Genesis 15 verse 1. The words resonated through his very being, filling him with strength. It was then that the divine plan unfurled before him, whispering the truth of the unfolding story. The journey had only just begun, yet a greater mystery unraveled, one that would gather nations and weave the fabric of faith across generations. Little did Abram understand that he was not merely a traveler, but the father of many, destined to reveal God's glory through the ages to come. And thus, the seeds of a covenant were firmly planted, awaiting their harvest in the annals of history. What would this covenant unveil for him and generations yet to arise? As the sun rose on the horizon, casting a golden hue over the encampment, Abram felt a stirring in his heart, a deep yearning to seek the presence of the Lord. The weight of his father's shadow loomed large, yet within him burned the bright flame of hope. He recalled the promise that resonated in the stillness, a calling that was unshakable despite the challenges ahead. Determined to strengthen his faith, Abram took his flocks and wandered away from the camp, seeking solitude among the hills. There, he raised his hands to the heavens and prayed, "O Lord, I have set out in obedience, yet my father's heart remains closed to your truth. What must I do?" In that, a stillness enveloped him, and he felt the presence of the Almighty close beside him. The voice of the Lord broke the quiet, gentle yet powerful, echoing through the valleys and hills. "To obey me, Abram, you must step beyond the familiar. For great is the plan I have for you, but it requires separation. I will make you a father of many nations, but your path lies in the unknown, away from the gods of your forefathers." Genesis 17 verse 4. This divine revelation stirred Abram's spirit. As he descended the hill, he understood that this journey was not merely geographic, but spiritual. It called for a complete relinquishment of the past and an embrace of the future that awaited him, a future written in the stars and sealed by covenant. When he returned to the camp, he found Terah discussing their route with the household. The air was thick with tension, and Abram could sense the turmoil within his father. "The idols call to me, Abram," Terah said dismissively as Abram approached. "They are the legacy of our ancestors. How can one abandon the familiar for the whispers of an unseen God? Father, what shall it profit a man if he gains everything yet loses his soul?" Mark 8 verse 36, Abram replied, with fervor igniting his voice. "I must follow the path the Lord has set before me, for I have seen his promise in my heart. I cannot stay where the spirit of the past clings like a shadow." Terah's brow furrowed, a battle raged within him. He loved his son yet clung fiercely to the gods that were his heritage. "Then you will go alone, for my faith remains in the gods of old. I cannot join you on this strange journey." Terah turned, leaving Abram standing amidst the quiet hum of their tending flock. Heart heavy but resolute, Abram gathered his household, and with a spirit worn yet steadfast, he declared, "I must continue on this journey towards Canaan alone if need be. I must obey the voice of my God." As he walked, the promise lingered in the air, beckoning him to deeper faith. With every step, the landscape shifted, and the weight of his father's disbelief faded behind him. He ventured eastward, the vision of a new land filled with abundance lighting his way. He felt both fear and excitement surging through him. What awaited him was a future woven intricately by divine hands. Under the wide expanse of the skies, Abram knelt once more, whispering prayers filled with gratitude and surrender. "I am yours, O God, whatever you ask, I shall do." And the Lord spoke again, leaving no doubt in Abram's heart. "This day, I affirm my covenant with you. To your descendants, I will give this land." Genesis 12 verse 7. As Abram prostrated before the Almighty, he understood not only his role but the coming generations that would arise from him, a lineage that would bear the promise of redemption and grace. Though the road ahead seemed daunting, Abram embraced the mystery of God's sovereign plan, knowing with certainty that it would unfold in ways he could scarcely imagine. Little did he know, the call to rise above shadows was only the beginning. The fate of nations rested on his faithfulness. How profound that only by leaving everything behind could he embrace the fullness of God's promise. What might this covenant of faith reveal to the world in ages to come? As Abram journeyed away from the familiar hills of his youth, each step took him deeper into the unknown, yet closer to the heart of God. The vibrant hues of dawn faded into the bold colors of the day, and Abram felt the warmth of the sun reflected in the fervor of his spirit. Even as he walked onward, the pang of his father's rejection lingered, yet it was overshadowed by the song of the promise that was engraved upon his soul. In time, Abram approached a sacred grove, where the oaks stood tall and proud, their branches reaching out in communion with the sky. Here, he paused to offer thanks once more. "O Lord," he murmured, "though I walk this path alone, I know your presence is my fortress and shield. With every breath, I will proclaim your name." As dusk beckoned with its soft twilight, the presence of the Lord enveloped him. "Abram," came the voice, clear and unmistakable. "You have begun a journey that is beyond your understanding. Look toward the heavens, and count the stars, if you are able. So shall your offspring be." With wonder in his heart, Abram gazed upward, tracing the myriad stars that adorned the night sky, faithful witnesses to God's promise. Yet doubt whispered in the back of his mind. "O Lord, how shall I know that I shall inherit this land?" The question escaped his lips, born of the weight of uncertainty. The Lord responded, and his words were filled with majesty. "Take for me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon." Genesis 15 verse 9. With obedient hands, Abram gathered the animals as directed, slicing them in two and laying them opposite each other, the darkness of the night casting a solemn shadow over the sacred rite. Then, as the crimson sun melted into the horizon, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and a great dread washed over him. He witnessed a vision of darkness, a prophetic revelation of what lay ahead for his descendants in bondage and trials in a foreign land. But know this, the voice of the Lord carved through the night's darkness, after 400 years, they shall return to this land when the iniquity of the Amorites is complete. Genesis 15 verses 13 to 16. As the eerie silence filled the air, a blazing torch of fire passed between the pieces of the sacrifice, a divine sign of covenant. A holy assurance enveloped Abram's heart. He understood that the Lord had entered into an everlasting agreement with him. To your offspring, I give this land. In the depths of his soul, Abram began to sense the weight of his calling anew. This covenant was not merely for him but for generations to come, an unfolding which would echo through the pages of eternity. He stood in awe of God's greatness, a vessel for a promise that would transcend time and lead countless souls back to the Lord. Emboldened, he declared into the night, I will trust in the Lord with all my heart, I shall not lean on my own understanding. Proverbs 3 verse 5. The stars twinkled above, affirming his faith, and he began to contemplate the depth of the plan before him. Each moment he gazed upon the sky overhead, he understood that he was part of a larger tapestry woven by divine hands, and so, with renewed resolve, he turned towards the land of Canaan, his heart ignited with purpose. Little did he know that within the folds of God's promise lay the heartbeat of redemption for a world long in need. What mighty transformation awaited him and his descendants as they walked in faith? How would this covenant echo beyond the bounds of history? God's sovereign design was unfolding, and a wondrous plan awaited its revelation. As the dawn broke gently over the land, the light of the sun touched Abram's face, renewing his spirit for the journey ahead. Each step deeper into Canaan ignited within him the flame of promise, a guiding light illuminating the road of potential before him. The air throbbed with anticipation as he recalled the covenant, the assurance of countless descendants, a land of his own, and the echo of his faith resonating through future generations. Abram set his thoughts toward the presence of God, a steadfast companion in his solitude. O Lord, my heart is full of wonder and yet burdened with questions, he whispered, his eyes scanning the horizon. The path was uncharted and his heart ached for direction. He pondered the gravity of the divine visitation, sensing that this journey was not solely for his own sake, but for a greater purpose yet to be revealed. As he arrived at the great oak of Moreh, the voice of God re-emerged in his memory. To your offspring, I give this land. He knelt beneath the ancient tree, the roots intertwining with the ground like the very promise that anchored his soul. He called upon the name of the Lord, seeking guidance and clarity. In days to come, a great famine afflicted the land, darkness stretching across the fields and hearts of many. In times of scarcity, anxiety lingered heavy in the air. What shall I do, O Lord? Abram pondered, the uncertainty pressing upon his spirit. Should he seek refuge in Egypt, or stay and trust in your provision? The Lord spoke clearly again, fear not, for I will be with you. You shall not forsake the land of promise, for I shall provide, even in the midst of trial. Abram, his heart steadfast, decided to remain, for the roots of faith run deeper than the temptations of worldly measures. Yet, with a heart burdened by the weight of need, Abram ventured cautiously toward Egypt. He turned to Sarai, his beloved wife, and spoke softly, You are a woman of great beauty. If we speak truth of our union, my life may be forfeit. In Egypt, declare that you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you. Though trembling at the thought, Sarai nodded in agreement, trusting the wisdom of her husband. As they entered the land of the Pharaoh, the beauty of Sarai caught the eye of those who served in the court. Word soon reached Pharaoh himself, and he sent for Sarai, captivated by her allure. Fear gripped Abram's heart, for he feared the fate that may await him, yet as Sarai was brought into the palace, God intervened. Plagues fell upon Egypt, compelling Pharaoh to cast his gaze upon Abram, demanding answers. Why have you deceived me? Pharaoh cried out, horrified at the unfolding of such calamity. Take your wife and go. Take all that is yours, and leave my sight. With riches bestowed upon them in haste, Abram and Sarai, now heavy with favor, returned to Canaan. The bitter taste of deception lingered, yet God's hand was evident even amidst their failure. In the stillness of night, alone upon the altar of reflection, Abram pondered the weight of his deception. O Lord, he shouted into the stars, how can I stand before you, with my frailties laid bare? Understanding the depths of repentance, he sensed a profound truth, that God's faithfulness is not contingent upon human performance. Thus, the journey unfolded, not only as a journey through land but through the very soul of man. The covenant remained intact, even stained by human doubt. With each passing day, new chapters of faith and frailty rewrote the story, leading to the revelation of God's sovereign plan. But little did Abram know that the path of his descendants would lead to trials much greater than his own trials, where faith would be tested and the promise would face its own crucible. In the darkness of uncertainty, a light was preparing to shine, as the thread of destiny was woven into the fabric of history. What divine surprise awaited beyond the horizon of his obedience, bringing forth a legacy of hope for all nations? Abram returned to the place where he had first called on the name of the Lord, the Oak of More. The murmurs of the famine still echoed in his heart, and a lingering guilt haunted his reflections. Yet there, enveloped by the ancient trees, he sought solace in prayer, lifting his voice to the heavens. O God of my ancestors, how can I bear the weight of these trials? Lead me in your truth, for I am but dust. As he prayed, the Lord spoke once more, his voice enveloping the air with authority. Abram, you are a vessel of promise. Your trials are but a shadow of the glory to come. Fear not, for I will make your name great, and through you, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. Strengthened by this divine promise, Abram knew he must return to the call placed upon his life. However, the scars of his past lingered, a reminder of his deception in a foreign land. His heart ached as he thought of his family, of Terah, his father, who had embarked with him from Ur of the Chaldeans but had settled in Haran, never fully grasping the divine calling. What of my father, O Lord? What shall become of him? Abram's heart cried out with longing. That it was then that God revealed a greater design, a transformation destined to unfold. Your journey is not isolated, Abram. I will guide you to a separation necessary for the unfolding of my plan. Your father, Terah, must stay in Haran. It is there that the old ways will fade, and you shall carry the torch of promise alone into Canaan. It is through this, your faith shall become a beacon. Abram felt the weight of this divine command, a calling severing ties to the past in pursuit of a promise yet unseen. O Lord, I shall obey. Though it burdens my heart to leave my father, I will follow your command. In the stillness that enveloped him, divine peace settled over Abram's spirit. He set out the next day, gathered his flock, and prepared a journey toward the lands that awaited him. Before departing, he sought Terah, whose heart had grown weary and frail in their time together. Bowing before his father, Abram spoke with tenderness, Father, I am called to move beyond our dwelling. The Lord has promised me a land, and I must go, but know that you shall remain in my heart. Terah looked upon his son with eyes of understanding and sorrow. Though I do not know this Lord you speak of, I have seen your faith. Go, my son, and may the God who has called you guide your steps. Thus, with a bittersweet farewell, Abram set his face toward the promise of Canaan, leaving behind the comforts and familiar ties of Haran. The path ahead unfurled like the scrolls of ancient prophecy, with every step echoing the weight of destiny. As he journeyed forth, the winds carried his name into the heavens, and God's blessings trailed after him like shadows of grace. Yet unknown to Abram, a new trial awaited him, one that would test his faith yet again, a test birthed from the very promise that had called him forth, and as night descended, his heart filled with the glimmer of hope, God's voice resonated once again, Your descendants shall be as numerous as the stars of the heavens, and through you, the promise shall ripple across generations. The tapestry of destiny was woven with threads of separation and trust, beckoning toward the profound mystery of God's sovereign plan. What greater purpose lay beyond this tale of faith, and how would the legacy of Abram unfold under the watchful eyes of his Creator? As the dawn broke upon the horizon, painting the skies with hues of gold and crimson, Abram journeyed through the rugged hills of Canaan. With each step, a deeper awareness of the promise enveloped him, and he marveled at the magnitude of his calling. The words of the Lord echoed in his heart, I will bless you and make your name great. In this new land, the very air seemed to vibrate with divine potential. Upon entering Canaan, he came to Shechem and paused at the Oak of More. There, he built an altar unto the Lord, seeking to honor the God who had called him. The altar became a sacred monument, a testimony to his faith, as he lifted sacrifices to God in gratitude. O Lord, he prayed, may your hand guide me in this land and fulfill the promise you have bestowed upon me. Yet amid his worship, the winds of uncertainty stirred once again. The land, though beautiful, was fraught with challenge. Famine loomed like a specter, casting shadows of doubt over his resolve. Abram's heart trembled as he recalled the famine that had driven him from his homeland. What will become of me here, O Lord? He pleaded. Will this land nourish me and my kin? God's response came like a gentle whisper to his soul, fear not, for I have placed you here for a purpose. The land you stand upon, I shall give to you and your descendants. Though trials may come, they are steps toward the promise. Strengthened by these assurances, Abram continued southward, traversing the valleys and mountains, sharing his hope with those he encountered. Yet, within him stirred the gnawing fear of failure, the very fear that had clouded his spirit in Egypt. This time, however, he remembered the name of the Lord, and he resolved to trust. As he wandered the land, he began to see the territories that would be his, rivers winding with life, hills ripe with harvest, and valleys cradling flocks. He kindled a spirit of praise for these gifts and renewed his altar at each junction, proclaiming the greatness of God, but the trials were not yet finished. From a distant land, a fierce king arose, his warriors striking fear into the hearts of those living in Canaan. News of impending conflict reached Abram, and dread threatened to seize him. O Lord, should I stand against the might of these men? He lamented. Once again, the Lord spoke, his voice like thunder resonating in the depths of Abram's being, you are the chosen vessel, and I shall fight for you. Your faith will shield you. With a heart filled with both trepidation and courage, Abram gathered his men. Even in this moment of uncertainty, he recognized God's hand in his life. He recalled the promise spoken to him on the mountain. With God, I shall prevail. He declared to his household. His voice rang with resolve, echoing across the valleys as he prepared for what lay ahead. In the night that followed, Abram rested uneasily, weighed down by the burden of destiny. As the stars filled the sky, a vision unfolded before him. It was not the clash of swords or the cries of battle that he beheld, but a great covenant God revealing his intention to bless, not just him, but the multitudes. Your descendants, Abram, shall be as numerous as the stars, echoed the voice of the Almighty, reassuring him once more. The promise hung heavy in the air, woven with threads of faith and sacrifice. Yet, just at that moment, doubt flickered in Abram's heart. How, O Lord, will this come to pass when I have no heir? And in that sacred stillness, God revealed the intricate layers of his sovereign plan, beckoning Abram to look ahead, though shrouded in mystery. What awaited him was not merely an answer, but a journey far more profound than he could envision, carrying the weight of nations and the unfolding of a divine narrative. And it came to pass, after these things, that the Lord spoke to Abram in a vision, saying, Do not be afraid, Abram, for I am your shield, your exceedingly great reward. Abram trembled at the words, yet his heart swelled with hope. O Lord God, he entreated, what will you give me, seeing I go childless? And the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. The darkness of night deepened around him, and God responded with firmness and grace. This one shall not be your heir, but one who will come from your own body shall be your heir. He took Abram outside, bidding him to look toward heaven and number the stars, if he were able to number them. So shall your descendants be, he proclaimed, affirming the covenant that lay before Abram. In that hour, Abram believed the Lord, and he accounted it to him for righteousness. The promise took root in Abram's spirit, igniting a flame of faith that would burn through the trials to come. Yet the road ahead was not without peril. As he grew in faith, so too did the shadows of doubt loom larger. Abram's journey led him further into the land, where he encountered many peoples, and at times, the peace of the Lord seemed far from him. The harsh reality of famine pressed upon him, and in a moment of fear, he turned south to Egypt, seeking refuge in the land of bread. What will they think of me? He pondered, with anxious thoughts of his beloved Sarai. They will see her beauty and seek to take her for themselves. Yet the Lord had not forsaken him, for in his mercy, he revealed to Abram the strength of his wife's heart and the destiny woven into her being. It was in the corridors of power where God showcased his might, for when Abram arrived in Egypt, the beauty of Sarai drew the attention of Pharaoh's servants and brought wealth to Abram in exchange for her. Yet troubling news soon penetrated even the walls of the palace. The Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. Pharaoh, full of confusion, called for Abram, demanding to know, "What is this that you have done to me? Why did you not tell me she was your wife?" Abram, filled with regret and understanding, answered, "Indeed, I thought you would kill me because of her, but she is truly my sister, the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife." With a heavy heart, Pharaoh sent Abram away, with his wife and all that belonged to him, shepherds and flocks restored, yet Abram learned the price of fear, and just how vital it was to trust in God's plan. Upon returning to the land promised to him, his thoughts danced as the stars overhead, realizing even amid turmoil and treachery, God's hand had guided him. As his heart sought the presence of the Lord, Abram was struck by a thought, "How is it, O Lord, that you have chosen me, a wandering Aramean, to be the father of nations?" He returned to the altar that he had made at the first, calling upon the name of the Lord once more, yet, peace was but a fleeting whisper, as strife rose between the herdsmen of Abram and the herdsmen of Lot. The land could not support them both, and the tension simmered, threatening to divide their kinship. "We are brothers," Abram spoke to Lot, "and let there be no strife between us. Choose the land that you will take, for I shall go the opposite way." With eyes of promise, Abram watched as Lot chose the well-watered plains of Jordan, returning to the Lord's command to look upon the land. In that moment, God spoke anew, "Lift your eyes now, and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward, for all the land which you see, I give to you and your descendants forever." Abram listened, heart attuned to the divine, and in the silence of the night, the stars twinkled above, as if echoing God's unbreakable promise. Yet doubt still lingered. How can these land and descendants be fulfilled through me? In the quiet of his spirit, a prayer arose. And even as he pondered the fullness of divine providence, the Lord had more to reveal, pulling back the veil of what would come to shape nations. Through one man's faithful heart. For in the unfolding story, the destinies of many would hinge upon the seeds of promise planted in Abraham's heart, whispering hope for generations yet unborn. And it came to pass, after these things, that the Lord appeared to Abram once more, in a vision filled with light and purpose. "I am the God who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to inherit it." Such words resonated in Abram's heart like the thunder of the heavens, compelling him to remember his journey from familiar realms to the vast unknown. "O Lord God," Abram replied, his voice a mixture of reverence and yearning, "how shall I know that I will inherit it?" The weight of the promise rested heavily upon him, and he sought assurance amidst his unfolding destiny. Then the Lord instructed him, "Bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon." Abram understood the significance of the sacrificial offering, for in that profound act of obedience, he prepared a covenant, a sacred transaction between the Almighty and his own soul. He brought all these to him and cut them in two, placing each half opposite the other. The sun began to set, and darkness enveloped the land, as a deep sleep fell upon Abram. As he slumbered, a terror and great darkness descended upon him, foreshadowing the trials to come for his descendants. Yet within that darkness, the voice of the Lord spoke, "Know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them for 400 years. A chill gripped Abram's heart as he heard the decree prepare the way for a future fraught with challenges. Nevertheless, God continued with reassurance, "But I will judge the nation whom they serve, and afterward they shall come out with great possessions." At that moment, through a smoking furnace and a burning torch, the Lord passed between those pieces, sealing the covenant with his divine fire. "To your descendants, I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates," he declared, establishing a promise that would transcend generations. Awakening from his slumber, Abram realized that he had encountered the presence of the Almighty. His spirit stirred as the implications of the revealing mystery washed over him. How could he have thought himself merely a wanderer, when he was, in truth, a key tale of divine providence? As the dawn broke over the horizon, Abram knelt before the altar he had built in memory of that night. His heart was full, yet questions still lingered in the silence of his soul. What will my descendants face in that distant land? He pondered. And who will carry your promise? Days passed, yet the shards of that covenant remained alive in his spirit. He remembered the words of the Lord, for they were like precious gems glimmering with hope. But then, with the gathering of harvest, there came a day when Sarah, his wife, approached him with concern. "Behold, the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. Perhaps you should take my maidservant, Hagar, so that I may build a family through her." Abram, caught between the promise and the urgency of his wife's words, found himself wrestling with despairing thoughts. Had not God spoken? He questioned inwardly. Yet the longing for heirs pressed heavily upon him, and in that moment of vulnerability, he acquiesced, straying from the divine plan laid before him. Thus, Hagar was brought forth, and from her womb would eventually spring a nation. But at what cost? As the story of Abram unfolded, unforeseen challenges braided themselves into the fabric of his life. It was a stark reminder that stepping outside the will of God can lead to a spiral of turmoil, and thus, a new tension loomed on the horizon, one that would test Abram's faith and obedience. For while the promise still stood, a choice loomed, revealing both the complexity of human will and the unwavering sovereignty of God. The mantle of Abraham was destined to birth not just a lineage of promise, but a narrative intertwined with trials, faith, setbacks, and redemption. What remained unsaid lingered in the air, taunting the faithful heart. How will the tapestry of destiny unfurl under God's guiding hand amidst man's frailty? As the sun rose upon the horizon of the 5th decade of his journey, Abram stood on the threshold of an unknown future, gazing upon the land promised to him. His heart swelled with a mixture of faith and trepidation, for his path was shrouded in divine mystery yet illuminated by the promise of a covenant that would echo through the ages. In the stillness of dawn, the air bright with expectancy, God spoke once more. "Abram, I have heard your heart's cry. You shall be called Abraham, for I am changing your name as I expand your promise." At that moment, along with his name, the hopes of countless generations were woven into the very fabric of his being. "You are to be the father of many nations, kings shall come from you." The weight of this divine declaration anchored deeply within him, stirring the resolve of faith that had long ago ignited within his soul. Abram felt the warmth of divine presence, and he knelt down, enveloped in both reverence and awe. "O Lord, I tremble at your word. How will this come to pass, for I remain childless?" Yet he felt no condemnation, only the gentle embrace of a God steadfast in covenant. The voice of the Lord reassured him, affirming, "Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son, and you shall name him Isaac. My covenant will be established with him and his descendants. I am the God of your father, it is I who will be faithful." In this sacred moment, the laughter of doubt and disbelief that once lingered in Abram's spirit turned into joy, a foreshadowing of Isaac's birth, who would symbolize the fulfillment of a promise made not by man, but by the God of the universe. "Though trials may come, hold steadfast," God proclaimed, "I have a great purpose for your lineage that will shape the destiny of nations." Soon thereafter, the promise took root as years unfolded. From the veins of Abraham and Sarah flowed the precious bloodlines of Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Leah, and ultimately Joseph, who would lead Israel to deliverance from Egypt. The lineage spun outwards, weaving a complex tapestry rich with faith, betrayal, and redemption. Yet, in a moment of testing far beyond the bounds of human understanding, God called upon Abraham to offer his beloved son Isaac as a burnt offering on Mount Moriah. The command pierced through his heart like an arrow, but Abraham knew the voice of his God. His heart wrestled between love for his son and obedience to the Creator who had promised greater things. With a heavy heart and unwavering resolve, Abraham set forth on the arduous journey to the mount. The altar was built, and as he bound Isaac upon it, the weight of sorrow cloaked his spirit. But in the moment of his greatest trial, God intervened. A brilliant angel descended, proclaiming, "Do not lay a hand on the boy. For now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son." Abraham's heart soared, as before him rose the promise wrapped in a ram caught in the thickets, destined to take Isaac's place upon the altar. In that moment, he understood the depth of covenant, and his faith was reckoned as righteousness. The profound obedience of Abraham culminated with a resounding promise, "In your offspring shall all the nations of the earth be blessed." Genesis 22 verse 18. This moment was the climax of his transformative spiritual journey, a revelation of God's immense grace and faithfulness. Abraham beheld the edge of God's design, realizing that his obedience would ripple through history, laying the foundation for a people set apart to bear witness to the wonders of the Almighty. As he descended from the mountain, burdened yet elated, Abraham returned to his family, knowing that through his faith, the course of human history had shifted, echoing the divine purpose crafted long before his birth. The whispers of prophetic generations reverberated in the hearts of those who would follow the threads of God's sovereign plan interwoven within the tapestry of time itself. Now, dear friends, as we reflect upon this powerful journey of faith and obedience, it calls each of our hearts to consider the next steps in our own faith journeys. Do not hesitate to subscribe immediately to our channel to keep connected to God's Word and the boundless narratives yet to unfold in your lives. Leave a like now to help spread God's truth through the algorithm and uplift others who may need to encounter this hope. Comment below with your spiritual reflections and how this miracle of Abraham's faith has impacted your journey. It's a sweet blessing to share in the testimonies of God's work in our lives. Lastly, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who hunger for God's truth. Don't wait even one more second. Let us unite, celebrating the transformative power of faith together. Only we, as true believers, understand the importance of supporting biblical content and reaching more souls for Christ.